The Campo and Joe podcast is brought to you by Bold City Heating and Air. Fast and reliable AC service.
Welcome in, Campo and Joe. I tell you what, we are fired up and ready to go, but probably fired up for a little bit of a different reason. But Campo and Joe with our first broadcast in the regular season. We finally have a game to look back on. Our head coach, Dave Campo, Joe C. from XL Primetime. Coach, yes, we have 60 minutes of ball, real ball that we can get into. 30 minutes good, 30 minutes full of question marks. So let's see if we can't feed the fans a little intel. What was your – well, let's just start with your reaction coming out of a tough loss, a really tough loss.
Well, I'll tell you what, losing like the way they lost stays with you longer. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt in my mind. Even more so for the fans, but even the coaching staff. The players get over things relatively quickly most of the time. Mm-hmm. But the coaches, obviously it's their full life.
Right.
Fans, it's their full life
because
you
better believe
they're into it, And the players, they go home, they got the family to take care of and this and that. So to me, it was a gut punch in the gut, the way the game finished. And hopefully that's not a trend.
Yeah, exactly. It could be good. And you mentioned the word trend, and unfortunately – having lost 6 of their last 7 is a trend.
Now, that's what I'm talking about. I don't want it to continue.
One's an aberration, but I believe the theme in the offseason was to come out of the funk that they were in December and into January, losing the games that they lost, become a tougher football team, efficient, on and on and on, with all the things that you and I talked about during the offseason. So they come down to South Florida. Defensively, looks like they got a really solid game plan.
Right.
They're tamping down Tua, not letting him get loose, not letting the receivers get loose. Right. Everything was going swimmingly on that side. And then obviously the plays that Trevor made in the first half and the Brian Thomas catch in the back of the end zone, it was sensational.
Right.
And so you're thinking, this is a dub. What happened?
Well, first of all, there are so many positives in this game, and it's a shame. That's what makes it the shame. When you really basically dominated the football game for a major part of it, right up until the long drive and the fumble going into the end zone. Mm-hmm. Up until that point, the offensive line was blocking.
Yeah.
They were giving Trevor time because the running game was going, and they were controlling the run.
Yeah.
I mean, they were running the football effectively, and they were able to protect because a lot of the plays were play action pass. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. That's exactly what you want. They were staying balanced. Everything was going well. Mm-hmm. Defensively, they were changing up. They were putting different personnel at different times so you couldn't zero into one guy. They had Jorian Jones in there and nickel one play, then the next play they had Savage in there. They had Savage back at safety, and then he was dropping down into a robber. Mm-hmm. The game plan was excellent on both sides of the ball, in my opinion. But, Joe, momentum is a factor in a football game. Yeah. It's human nature. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, we fumble a football, which I'm shocked that Etienne didn't learn from 2 years ago. Yeah. When you run the ball in the red zone, everything closes on you faster because everybody is closer to you. When you see a guy in any way, shape, or form, and I guarantee you he saw the safety, he thought he was just going to bust right in the end zone, which he would have if he'd have covered the ball up. He tried to do it, but he did it too late.
Right.
But, when that happened, and then the very next play you give up an 80-yard explosive, you could see the crowd, the players, everybody reacted to it. Yeah. And now it's up to the leaders of the football team and not the head coach, the assistant coaches have got to get the people on the bad end of that back in tune.
Yeah.
And it just didn't happen. And unfortunately, a lot of this game, you've heard me say it 100 times, it's 4 or 5 plays in the game make the difference. And it's the team that, first of all, if you do it, you have a chance to win. If you don't do it, the only way you win is you have to handle the adversity. Yeah. And we have not done that. We, both sides of the ball, with 4 minutes and something left, had a chance to finish that football game with a win, and they didn't do it.
Yeah, it was a kick in the shorts. It really was. And to your point about 4 or 5 plays, and we just mentioned the 2 huge plays, the swing, the fumble, the 80-yarder. But the other part of it is that we mentioned Ryan Nielsen's defense. His debut was awesome.
Absolutely.
It really was.
Absolutely.
The Miami Dolphins came into this game first in yards per game, second in points per game from last year. Not much had changed. They brought back a lot of the same exact weapons. And so for Jacksonville's defense to be able to do what they did, you got to give Duval a lot of credit. Well, here's the thing. Same thing with the offensive line on the other side. They did a pretty good job. They were opening up the run game, providing time for Trevor. But to your point, with just a small number of plays, the Waddle, big completion. The A-Chain, big completion. Of course, the Tyreek Hill play. Those are 3 you'd love to have back.
Right.
And then on the other side, back-to-back sacks at the end of the game.
Yep.
And so that's what gets you more than anything else.
Well, first of all, let's talk about those big plays.
Yeah.
The big plays are going to happen in a ball game.
Mm-hmm.
How you react to those is the key. Do you mitigate it?
Right.
For example, when Waddle caught the deep crossing route, what happened? We made the tackle.
Yeah.
They didn't score on that drive.
Right.
Now they changed field position and all the things that are important in the football game. So big plays help you, give you a chance to whether you score or not. It affects the game. On the Hill post, what do? We miss the tackle.
Yeah.
We don't make the tackle. We don't mitigate it. Okay.
Right.
So to me, those things, we had a number of big plays. We really the pass interference to Thomas, where we set it up for the deal. The running game, we had a bunch of runs, 8, 10, 12 yards.
Yeah.
Those things add up, but those plays are mitigated by reacting after them. Yeah. And that's what we did not do yesterday after the 2 big ones.
Yeah. You had to feel really good when you saw the big plays take place early, that there was time for Trevor to get the ball down the field. Something that we've talked about a bunch is that drafting Brian Thomas versus going in another direction, it paid off because I can quickly call him a PI player.
Yeah.
He's a guy that will draw the full attention of a defender.
Absolutely.
In this case, his name was Jalen Ramsey, and he embarrassed him right at the goal line and then chatted him up after the flag. So Tom Brady always had a guy that could get deep. And you can go back to the 2017 game, I believe it was Brandon Cooks, and all he needed to do was put that ball in the air on a deep route, and he was going to get contact. And in large part, you were going to get PI penalties thrown against you. And I'm trying to remember, that was Jalen's first year, and A.J. Boye, remember, from Central Florida, they brought over from Houston. Anyway, he got flagged once or twice in that game.
Right.
And so Brian Thomas represents a ton of possibility when it comes to that deep game.
No question. And I think Gabe Davis is a good addition because Gabe Davis is a guy that gets himself open in the intermediate areas. But if you relax on him, he can go vertical and he can make the tough catches. So the guy I was concerned with yesterday, obviously, was Kirk. That game could have been a lot different if he makes both of those catches. The first one, he never should have missed.
Never.
The second one was forced a little high because of the pressure got in Trevor's face, and he had to release it a little high. But he should have made that catch as well.
And
you get your hands on it.
His body was going in one direction. He's got to turn immediately, and I get it. But that's what they get paid to do.
Absolutely.
And the other thing about Christian Kirk is I'm not going to make an excuse for him because he should have made those 2 plays. That's what he is highly paid to do.
Right.
And he was hungry coming into the beginning of the season because of the injury last year. And so he had to be pressing.
Absolutely.
He made one big catch. But he was
down the middle.
But he was 1 for 3.
Right.
And you can't do that. Let's get to the other guy, Evan Engram.
Yeah.
Well, I thought the Trevor to Evan connection was going to be alive and well right from the jump. Not quite sure. They decided to take him away defensively, didn't they?
Well, they really didn't take him away.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where I think the game plan, they felt that they could go down the field with the ball. And I think it really hurt them in the end, which we can talk about those that 4 minutes, what happened on that drive. But it really, Trevor really didn't take a profit in that game.
Right.
If you really look at the whole ball game, it was based on play action, go down the field, put the pressure on the defense with the deep ball, those kind of things. They took so much criticism for not running the football last year and using 5-yard passes to do it. The only short passes that they threw the whole ballgame were swings and stuff to ETN,
right.
which is okay, and that's fine. But
right.
but I really think Engram, in my opinion, should have caught the ball on the 3rd down and 5 that when he got hit. He had the ball in his hands, but before the guy hit him, the ball was coming out of his hands.
Yeah, you've got to make that
so
play.
That play was critical because that was those 3 and outs there for a couple times. Yeah. So there's a lot of people at fault here, including the quarterback, that we can talk about a little bit. But it was one of those days where they just didn't do enough in crunch time.
Yeah, and it like all of Duval, it's got disappointed is one way to describe it. Pissed off's another way to describe it.
Yeah, the fans are up in arms.
Yeah, because that's a game that you had, and you had. Everything that happened with Tyreek Hill before the game was already bizarre enough, but you had held him down. You had neutralized one of the biggest playmakers in the National Football League. He went, if you take away the 180-yarder, he had 8 grabs for about 60 yards. I'm not doing the math correctly right now, but it was a low number. And then obviously the Jalen Waddle play, like you said, they stopped him. Jacksonville was up by 14 points. Stopped them twice on 4th down.
Right.
That forced them in a bad situation ultimately to miss a field goal.
Yep.
Still led by 10 at the half. I mean, we can go on and on and on.
Right.
And
complete control until that
couple
plays.
Let's at least use this little big question before we get to Trevor, because I do agree we need to get to Trevor.
All right.
4th and 1 at your own 32.
Right.
You're a head coach, a former head coach in the National Football League. I love Doug Peterson's aggressiveness. I will never deny that.
Right.
I like his attitude and belief that we got to be able to make these plays. But there comes a time when you have to just basically tell yourself, hey, dummy, don't do this. Right. This is not a good idea. What did you think?
Well, first of all, the circumstances determine a lot of it. Yeah. If you feel like something's starting to happen with your defensive ball club, and you're not quite sure that they can stop the next drive. Okay. Then you do some critical decisions. I go back to one of the years we won the Super Bowl, the '95 year with Barry Switzer was a head coach. Right. And we had Emmitt Smith. The defense, I'm the defensive coordinator. I'm sitting upstairs. Right. And we're struggling on defense. It's the 4th quarter. We're really struggling. Right. And we run an off-tackle play behind Larry Allen, off guard, off tackle, to Emmitt on a 3rd and 1, and we don't make it. And it's on our own 40-yard line. Right. And Barry said, do you think we should go for it? Now, I'm on the phone, but he's not talking to me. He's talking to Ernie Zampese, the offensive coordinator. Okay. And Ernie said, we got Emmitt Smith and we got Larry Allen. We're going to run the same play again. Okay? And I was all for it because I'm sitting up there saying, if they kick the ball here, we're not going to win. Okay. We're out of gas. Well, they run the same play and don't make it. He gets vilified for it.
I get that part.
Okay, so now let's go to this one. That's one of the reasons you make that kind of a decision, whether I do disagree with it, in other words, personally, because the defense to me hadn't shown enough of a negativism at that point to that 80-yard play had to shake Doug.
It shook him.
If that's why he made that decision to keep them on the field, to try to keep the defense off the field. Yeah. Okay. The other situation is that you've got a play dialed up that you feel 100% that you're going to make it. Now, I'm more concerned with the decision than I am the sweep. And here's why. Okay. Because if Cam Robinson even puts his hand on the defensive end, that's a 1st down. They had a double team on the outside contained player.
Right.
Cam Robinson whiffed on the play. The defensive end was clean, and he couldn't cut back. When he cut back, the guy was sitting right there in the hole.
Right.
Now that's a big play. If he makes a good block on the guy, it's a big play. If he just gets his hand on it, it's a first down. Now, you remember the play?
Mm-hmm.
What the quarterback do?
Field.
What the quarterback do?
Yeah.
He changed the play.
Okay.
They had a quarterback sneak on.
Yeah.
Everybody was condensed.
Yeah, and Doug said
he changed it.
Yeah, Doug said 1.5 yards or whatever it was.
Yeah, you're not going to get the sneak.
Yeah.
Which in my opinion was smart.
Mm-hmm.
Did Cam miss the check?
Oh, he might have.
Or did he just whiff?
Just whiffed.
So that's what it comes down to. That's why you have human beings on the field. It just doesn't automatically happen.
Right. That part I get.
So I'm more concerned, really, when you talk to me, Joe, about the decision than I am the play itself. And that's where I sit on it.
It's so funny, and I'm just looking at the play-by-play right now, and the first thing I'm thinking to myself, that was not a long drive that the Jaguars were on, but it was an effective drive before the ETN fumble. And so the defense had all that time, not like it was a ton of time, because we're only talking about a half dozen plays, a half dozen plays, and then the one play for 80 yards. So it's not like that defense was on the field and they were gassed.
Right.
I do understand what you're saying is that Doug got shook a little bit.
Right.
And then when you do change the play, and then player error. There's nothing wrong with pointing out that 74 didn't get the job done.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that's getting me more than anything else is that you had just been successful enough to recover the fumble that Parker Washington ball pops out. He at least was instinctive and lucky enough to get the ball back. So you fumbled. You gave up an 80-yarder. You fumbled again. You're able to hang on to it.
The Campo and Joe podcast is brought to you by Bold City Heating and Air. Fast and reliable AC service.
You've got to keep. You didn't gain anything on that third down.
Right.
Now it goes to the end of the quarter. You're going into the fourth quarter. There is a TV timeout.
Right.
We all know how long TV timeouts are. That's a good 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, this was not a 30-second timeout and come back.
Right.
Doug had all that time
Yeah.
to make a decision, and that's when I say to myself, and I understand you got to be able to get a yard, you got to be able to prove you can win a football game, and all the other stuff. You got to be smart too.
Yeah. Oh, there's a common sense situation. The guy at the Charger coach, the old one, got fired because of making those analytic decisions in their own territory.
Right. He always went for it on fourth down pretty much, and it was idiotic.
Right.
Even when he had a chance to get to the postseason, he went for it.
Right.
And so I can't get away from you had the lead.
Right.
You were able
That's
to.
That's why I don't like the decision.
Right.
You
were able to, at the very least, recover the football.
Yeah.
You're at your own 32.
Right.
Logan Cook's pretty good punter last time I checked. You can at least pin him deep and see if you can't make a stop. Your defense at that point had held one of the better scoring teams to two touchdowns and a field goal.
Yeah, I'm with you. We've said enough on it, probably, but
all right,
it really irritates you.
Yeah.
But as it turns out, we mitigated that mistake, though.
Mm-hmm.
We mitigated.
Very true. Very true.
The defense sudden change came out and stopped them, and they missed a field goal.
Yeah.
So
and it looked like the kicker for Miami laces out or otherwise. He just had a very small slip and yanked it left, and we all know what happened after that. But they did put themselves in a position to win this football game. So let's get to Trevor now. And I know that one of the sacks at the end of the game, there was nothing he could do. Anton Harrison drove his pass rusher up the field right into Trevor. Bad angle, bad decision by Anton. Anyway, the first one, the thing I'm fighting with right now is that he made some big-time throws, took care of the football for the most part, but he has got to have a quicker reaction and plan in those moments.
Yeah, I'm. We've been a little bit concerned about that on our show when we've talked about that, because he had two guys open. Mm-hmm. He He had right in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
But he was waiting for the deep turn in, and he was looking right at it.
Yeah.
He also had, I think it was Gabe Davis, wide open in the flat.
Mm-hmm.
It was a long yardage situation, which hurt them a lot because their second down play during the game was not very good.
Right.
The first down plays were pretty good. We popped off a lot of gain, then we'd get a first down, then we get a decent run, and then the second play was not very good, so we had a lot of third downs. But he had guys there. Well, he made the decision to run, but they had a twist on, and the defensive end came up underneath, and he ran right into him. That one, in my opinion, was exactly what you said. He didn't make a decision fast enough to get it to his outlet.
Right.
Okay. The next one, they went two-man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, if I'm the quarterback in two-man, I'm looking at my primary receiver right now.
And explain two-man just so they...
Two-man, everybody's man-to-man underneath.
Yep.
And their two-man was not a true two-man. They bracketed outside, inside on both outside receivers.
Right.
So the two inside guys and the back, if he was going to get into the action, whether it's a tight end and the slot player or it's the three of them,
right?
They are one-on-one, right? So as I look out there, if I see too deep, the first thought I'm thinking is zone. Well, it wasn't zone. As soon as I saw the primary receiver, a guy locked up on him,
right?
The first thought I would have is, where can I escape? Now, when you watch that play, Phillips went around Harrison.
Yeah.
And Harrison let him get there way too fast. He didn't open up. He opened up too quick.
So bad.
And it's in bad shape,
And
right?
by the way, that's Jalen Phillips coming back from an Achilles.
Yeah. He's not the best player Harrison has played against, and Harrison wasn't very good in that whole ball game.
Yeah.
Let me just say that. But he came around. The three interior guys that we were worried about had their guys stalemated up in front, okay? And instead of breaking sideways underneath the upfield rush, that's all he had to do.
Yeah.
And he's running for 20 yards before anybody gets to him, right? But he zeroed in on where he was going to throw that football. And when that guy wasn't open, they had a double on him. They were inside-outside bracket. He
that's when he
tried to run up
button.
and down inside. So that's his fault all the way, in my opinion. Even though they did a great job of holding, making a deal.
But it's like we said, we're talking about isolated moments that you win or lose a ball game.
Correct.
And not saying that one play would have won the game, but it would have kept the game alive.
Right.
All right, so let's just wrap up with this because, like we said, we tried to hit everything. Don't call that fourth down play. Got to have a better plan when you move out, on and on and on.
Right.
Defense, a lot of improvement. Offensive line interiorly, pretty solid, but there's a lot of things that still have to happen. All right, so they got Deshaun Watson coming in. And I may be way off on this, Coach, but I am looking strictly at Deshaun Watson. I know they have a good defense. I know there are other positives that they're bringing into town, but they are playing a bad quarterback on Sunday, and they better figure out a way to win.
Yeah, I think that part of the problem he had in that ball game with Dallas, and I looked at the game, I mean, their defense was swarming them. So to me, they've always had that kind of ability over there on defense in Dallas, okay? But it looked to me like their offensive line's a little sketchy.
Yeah, they had two guys, big question marks.
There you go. The two tackles.
Yeah, they weren't
available.
Now,
I don't know if they're going to play against us or not, but,
right.
but they were sketchy. So the pressure was on Watson from the very beginning. So some of it was that. Some of it is I think he's not comfortable, whatever the word is, okay? The thing that concerns me about this game is the fact that if you had asked me before the game, which of these two teams that we're going to play in the first two games do we have the better chance to win, I would have said Miami. And the reason for it is they're a finesse, speed football team. We've got athletes enough on this team to play with teams that are like that. On the other side, this Cleveland outfit, they will hit you in the mouth.
Yeah, they're very physical.
And that's the AFC and the NFC North are both the same with the way they play football. It's all about physicality. I'm not sure we've got to find out if we're built to play that kind of a team. And that's something that I hope we did a good job with the running game enough this week to show that we maybe have a little bit more physicality. But that's the concern to me as much as it is Watson or whoever it is, because their defense is good. And we're going to have to do some things to negate their physicality.
Yeah, and I tell you what, the Tank Bigsby performance amped up, I think, a lot of people's confidence in the run game.
Right.
Obviously, Etienne's going to be hungry. He's going to come back. And we're talking about a 1-2 punch that's developing nicely.
Yes.
Not unlike Mostert and Achane down in South Florida. So if that can happen, and then they can just at least get off the ball and keep Myles Garrett off of Trevor's back.
Absolutely.
Then they've got a chance there.
Yeah, and I think that's the only thing I would have said looking at the game. If I'm watching the game as an offensive line coach, I'd be telling, in a critical situation, both of those big plays for Miami were maximum protection. Okay? I would have put somebody on a chip or something on Phillips because of the way, not because of Phillips, but the way 77 played during the game.
Are you thinking Brenton Strange, maybe a guy who's done
either that or use the back and put him out there and try to chip him? You know, in fact, I heard Fred Taylor in the postgame show say there's a chip where a guy kind of elbows him and goes out, and there's a chocolate chunk where the guy lays the wood on him. And I would have chocolate chunked him to make sure that he had some time at that position because Harrison didn't play very well on both run and pass, to be honest with you.
It really sucks. There's no other way to say it. His performance, the one Cam whiff, or actually he had a couple plays that were not stellar at all, but by and large, they were doing a pretty good job. But Pete Mitchell would always tell Leon, or Leon would always tell Pete Mitchell, tight end back in the day, just give me just a brief little hold, just a little bit,
right,
and see if you can get to him. All right, so we'll look ahead on XL Primetime. We'll try and paint some positives, but I'm telling you what, that one was not pretty, pretty in the end. And we'll see if Doug is a little bit better in terms of making his decisions, game plan a little bit better, and overall play.
I think if you look at this ball game as a fan, okay, if it's a 10-play situation, we won 7 of the 10. But the 3 was a difference in the ball game.
Yeah. 80.
And that's you have to be positive that you're 7 out of 10.
Yeah, true.
But we've got to learn how to finish the football game. Both sides of the ball had an opportunity with 4 minutes left to create an opportunity for us to win, and neither one of them did it.
Jacksonville's played a lot of good 30-minute ball games. They just keep score for the full 60, unfortunately.
Right.
All right, we are done. Joe C. from XL Primetime, our head coach Dave Campo. Always appreciate you guys hanging out with Campo and Joe.
The Campo and Joe podcast is brought to you by Bold City Heating and Air. Fast and reliable AC service.